68% of people who train regularly are magnesium deficient at the cellular level, even when their blood work comes back normal. And that single gap is enough to blunt the sleep stage responsible for roughly 70% of your nightly growth hormone release. The problem was never how many hours you slept. It was what your brain was allowed to do during them. First, the myth starts with the number on your last blood panel, and it is wrong in a specific way that hides the entire problem. Serum magnesium, the value reported on a standard test, represents less than 1% of total body magnesium. The other 99% is stored inside cells, in muscle tissue, and in bone. When intake falls short, the body does not let serum levels drop first. It pulls magnesium out of bone and intracellular stores to keep the blood number stable. Because serum magnesium affects heart rhythm, and the body protects it aggressively, often at the expense of everything else. A 2006 review by Nielsen and Lukaski in Magnesium Research found that exercise increases magnesium turnover by 10 to 20% through sweat losses, urinary excretion, and redistribution into working muscle during and after training. Separately, NHANES dietary survey data shows the average adult gets roughly half of the recommended magnesium intake from food, and that gap widens further for anyone who has reduced processed grains or dairy, two of the largest dietary sources for body composition reasons. Stack a training-related increase in requirement on top of a dietary intake that was already short, and studies measuring intracellular or red blood cell magnesium rather than serum find that roughly 68% of people who train consistently fall below optimal status. Your blood work can say normal while your muscles are running on borrowed magnesium pulled from your own skeleton. This is not a supplement marketing claim. It is a measurement gap. The test that would catch this is not the test anyone orders, so the deficiency exists in a blind spot between a normal lab result and a body that is quietly running a deficit it cannot report. If you have never had your intracellular magnesium checked, there is a real chance you are in that 68%, and the next 5 arguments explain exactly what that gap costs you while you sleep and how to close it without a lab test. Subscribe and stay for the mechanism behind it. The part of this that almost nobody connects to magnesium is what happens in your brain in the hour before you fall asleep. Magnesium acts as a natural blocking agent on NMDA receptors, the receptors that respond to glutamate, your brain's main excitatory signal. When magnesium is sufficient, it sits inside the NMDA receptor channel and physically dampens excessive excitatory firing, allowing overall brain activity to slow enough to transition into slow-wave sleep, the deepest non-REM stage. Magnesium also supports GABA receptor activity, your brain's primary calming signal, working alongside the NMDA effect rather than separately from it. A 2002 study by Held and colleagues published in Pharmacopsychiatry gave older adults with documented low magnesium a magnesium supplement before bed and measured their sleep with EEG. The supplemented group showed a measurable increase in slow-wave sleep percentage and a corresponding decrease in nighttime cortisol and ACTH compared to placebo, with the EEG data confirming the change at the level of brain activity, not just self-reported sleep quality. When magnesium availability drops from training-related losses, that NMDA blocking effect weakens. Glutamate signaling stays slightly more active than it should be at night. The brain still falls asleep on schedule. Total sleep time can look completely normal on a tracker, hour for hour, but the depth of the deepest stage gets shallower because the receptor system that gates the transition into slow-wave sleep is not receiving the signal it needs as cleanly as it should. This is the part that explains why someone can sleep 8 hours and still wake up undercooked with no obvious reason why. The hours were there on the screen. The depth was not. Slow-wave sleep is when the largest single pulse of growth hormone is released during the entire night, and it is also when cortisol clearance is most efficient. A sleep tracker counting total hours has no way to see any of this because total hours and sleep depth are 2 different variables measured by 2 different systems, and only one of them shows up on the screen you check in the morning. Third, even if someone identifies the gap and starts supplementing, the form of magnesium they choose can leave the problem almost entirely unsolved, and this is where most people quietly fail without realizing it. Magnesium oxide is the cheapest form, the one most commonly found in multivitamins and budget supplements, and a comparative absorption study by Feroz and Graber, published in Magnesium Research, measured its bioavailability as low as 4%. The magnesium ion is bound tightly to oxide, and most of it passes through the digestive tract without being absorbed, which is also the same reason magnesium oxide is sold separately as a laxative, at higher doses. Magnesium glycinate, where the magnesium ion is bound to the amino acid glycine, is absorbed through a different intestinal pathway, the same active transport route the gut uses for amino acids, and bioavailability for this form has been measured substantially higher in the range of 80%. A person taking 400 milligrams of magnesium oxide daily, believing they have closed their gap, may be absorbing the equivalent of roughly 16 milligrams, a number that does almost nothing against a requirement increased by training. The label on the bottle says the deficiency is solved. The biochemistry inside the gut says otherwise. Magnesium citrate sits between the two, with absorption studies placing it well above oxide, which is why it shows up as the default form in many sleep-focused supplement blends, even though glycinate has the stronger evidence base for the NMDA mechanism specifically. This single substitution, oxide for glycinate or citrate, can be the entire difference between a supplement that does nothing measurable for sleep and one that actually shifts NMDA receptor activity enough to change sleep architecture. People who tried magnesium for sleep and felt no difference were very often not wrong about the mechanism in argument 2. They were taking a form that was never going to deliver enough elemental magnesium to engage that mechanism in the first place. The fix was never more magnesium. It was the right magnesium. Fourth, the cost of leaving this unresolved does not show up next week. And that delay is exactly what makes it dangerous. It shows up in the hormonal ratio that governs how much of your training actually turns into adaptation rather than just fatigue. Cortisol and testosterone operate as a ratio, not as two isolated numbers, and that ratio determines whether your body is in a building state or a breaking down state on any given day. A study by Sinar and colleagues published in Biological Trace Element Research measured cortisol and testosterone in athletes before and after a period of magnesium supplementation during a training block. The supplemented group showed a reduction in cortisol of approximately 23% alongside a rise in testosterone, shifting the testosterone to cortisol ratio in the direction associated with better recovery and adaptation between sessions. Magnesium deficiency through the NMDA and sleep mechanism from argument 2 keeps nighttime cortisol elevated for longer than it should be, night after night, in a way that never registers as a single bad night. Elevated nighttime cortisol does not just affect how you feel in the morning. It feeds directly into the ratio that determines whether the next day's the NMDA and sleep architecture shift in argument 2 builds over consistent nightly intake, typically becoming measurable across 2 to 4 weeks, which is also roughly the window over which the cortisol shift in argument 4 starts to register. Your blood work still says normal. It was never going to say anything else.